If you don't understand it, you just jump up one morning and say, and give one fake reason why you want to be governor. I will give quality leadership that will make everybody believe that it's gain for everybody when we are able to institute a good governance. Don't misunderstand the call. It's a spiritual call. What it means for the faith of millions of Abians, both here and in diaspora, to be in your hand. It's a very pedestrian expression for somebody to say that somebody is forced into something. Are you forcing the future of the youth into an unwilling hand? The difference is now that what you notice is the gap, is what we are going to fill by participatory governance. You cannot dispute the divine call. So the call I'm talking about is a divine call that within me and God, I decided to say, I'm here to serve Abians. We don't just throw money to people. We monitor it to make sure it gets to the people who are supposed to use it. I'm Uchenna Ikonne, a professor of optometry, native of Burkenslu in Sialangwa North, Nigeria. I've been in the classroom for the past 30 years at Abia State University, served as a classroom lecturer, held some administrative positions, head of department, dean, deputy provost of College of Medicine, to director, Institute of Distant Learning, to deputy vice chancellor, academics. And from there I went as the acting rector of Abia Polytechnic, where I spent 14 months, and came back to be appointed the 7th substantive vice chancellor of Abia State University, a tenure that ended 30th November 2020. And I've been on sabbatical leave since then. Well, firstly, I have to become governor before I can perform. So when there is a call to duty, there is a gap. We saw there is a gap in the administrative space of the state. There are some ingredients that are lacking, which I think I can apply in governance for the good of the state generally, both in infrastructural development, exponential infrastructural development, and the human capacity building. That is building on the strong foundations the earlier leaders had led, including the incumbent, then putting it on a faster lane so that Abia can join the Committee of States, enjoy the dividend of democracy this time. But generally, if you look at it, the country is almost at the precipice at this time. That is why every party, even on national level, when they talk about zoning, they're not just talking about zoning, they are looking at capacity. Who is there that will be able to rescue the nation from the precipice it has found itself this time? The insecurity, the wave of insecurity, the downturn of the economic parameters of the state, the unemployment indices that we have, that is bringing the country from where it was to where it is now, that nobody is proud of. The nation is looking for who can lift it to that level again, generally. And Abia being a component of that larger nation, we're also hungry, though by God's grace, because of the intellectual capacity of grace of God, of the incumbent governor, we have peace and stability in Abia now, which is not the same story in our neighboring states. And somebody needs to sustain it. If we relax, we don't know what this state may turn into. We don't want to have the story our neighbors are having in the insecurity that is prevailing in those states. So there are legacies we need to sustain, and we need to move further from that. And you need a strong hand, a tested hand, a steady hand. It needs some maturity. It needs some experience. Well, it is not a time for the state to take a risk to experiment on a hand that you have not tested, that is just being promised. Having served the state for all these years, in such critical places where, because you know that the institutions, tertiary institutions are microcosms of the entire state, because the university, you have every family. Almost every family has some interest in that place. Either your wife, your husband is working there, then your children being students there for over 5 years or 10 years, they have graduated. You can compare within the period that I was at the helm of affairs, and when others was, there are indices to measure quality administration. There are indices to measure character. Somebody that's able to put smiles on the faces of people. So you have immediate institutions to compare from. Who is this man? What character does he have? It's not a guesswork. I've linked with Abians. I have served them. I've been secretary to the Elders Council. So I can listen to I've listened to the heartbeat of the elders of Abia, the dreams, listen to what they think this state ought to be. I've worked with the youth in those institutions, and for so many years, I've acclimatized myself with the yearnings of the youth for the future. I have worked for their future. I have stabilized them at that adolescent level. I've been able to control their idiosyncrasies, direct them to positive use. So I am best placed at this time to make sure that the labors of our heroes in the past will not be in vain, and build a strong future for the youth. That is why I am in that race. Don't misunderstand the call. It's a spiritual call. It's not a physical call. Because unless somebody understands the enormity of what is involved in governance of a state, if you don't understand it, you just jump up one morning and say, and give one fake reason why you want to be governor. But if you have the spiritual insight, what it means for the fate of millions of Abians, both here and in diaspora, to be in your hand, to trust the future of the youth, teaming youth into your hand, and be able to fulfill the dreams of the founding fathers of the state, then you know that it is not a child's play. It's not something you just wake up and say, want to boost your ego, to improve on your CV, that you want to be a governor. It's not something somebody can force you into. So I don't think that is it's a very pedestrian expression for somebody to say that somebody is forced into something. Are you forcing the future of the youth into an unwilling hand? Are you forcing the dreams of the founding fathers of Abia State into a reluctant hand? There is nothing like that. When I say it's a call, even in the Bible, they say people are called. God calls people. You cannot dispute the divine call. So the call I'm talking about is a divine call, that within me and God, I decided to say, I'm here to serve Abians. And that is the call I'm talking about. When God wants to work, he works through people. And people who are in the hands of God, God uses them to do his work. So the visit of those elders is in line with what God has planned for Abians at this time. When David was anointed king, he was there in the field. He didn't come to present himself. When Samuel came and all the tall people expected they should what the eye missed. They said this, it didn't happen. Somebody had to go to the field to call David to come. He didn't come on his own. So divine things, when God said, unless the person does not believe in God, those of us who believe in God, they say all things work together for good for those who believe in. So the visit of the elders, you are quoting is in line with God's plan to actualize his purpose. Well, the other thing you didn't quote what Mark said is, or which he may not say publicly, is there is also a gap in collection of those revenues. There's no state that entirely depends on allocation from federal government. The emphasis is on your IGR, ability to generate internally generated revenue, ability to collect it, and ability to make sure that the IGR, when collected, goes into the government coffers. You have identified Aba. Aba, anybody can say Aba is the cash cow of the state. There are other areas. There are three major towns, Umuahia or Hafia, right? There are revenues in all those places. You know, when you want to increase your income, what you have, you earn. You also block ways of where you waste. Block the loopholes where you waste money. So you have more money available for you to do your projects. So our blueprint is that we're not inventing the wheel. Remember, there is a development plan, a 30-year development plan, which the present government has put in place as a model for us to follow. It is in the interest of Abians. Do we have the character? Yes, we have the character to implement it. Do we have the courage? Yes, because these are the things you need to be able to withstand the politicians. We're dealing with politicians. Everybody comes with his own interest. But anybody who is in power, who is in leadership, knows that you have to spread the economic policies for majority of citizens to benefit from it. If you ask me whether the character is there to think of the welfare of the people, yes. Welfare includes salaries and pensions. If you recall that when I was in school, I never owed salaries until the COVID came. And so we ran uninterrupted academic calendar. We never owed pension. When I went to Polytechnic, the Polytechnic was down 9 months' salary. They were on strike. I came on board and I was able to harness their IGR, and even the 2 billion naira that was the school was indebted to, by sheer advocacy, I made the government to absorb it so that I saved the 42 million naira that the bank was taking every month to service the debt. This is part of increasing your IGR. If you block waste so that you have more fund to work with. And I started paying salary from IGR. There was some financial engineering that made it possible for me to use the IGR, which they were not using before to pay salary. I used it to pay salary because I plugged holes, leakages. I closed down so many other accounts I cut down allowances that were not in line with the law establishing the school. With that, I was able to have enough money to pay salary. Salary is for all members of staff, teaching and non-teaching. But if you are paying allowances for specific people, that's why I'm telling you that somebody needs to have the courage and say, no, this fund is for generality of Abians, not for we know how to balance welfare of a few people who are stakeholders. We also know how to prioritize the welfare of generality of when we talk about welfare, we talk about not just public servants, not just civil servants, those in private sector, to create a congenial atmosphere for their business to thrive, because they also pay taxes to the government. If you don't care for them, and it is morally wrong for you to go and demand taxes from them, that is my decision. Now we have a lot of Abian skills in diaspora. In fact, go to universities all over the world. You know, when I went to Aruchukwu, so I told them that what peculiarity of Arichukwu is the diaspora content of their population. Arrows are all over the world. Arrows are like Jews. You know, they are in America. Before you pass any election, you must have the Jewish community behind you. They are in Germany, they are in Switzerland, all over the place. But wherever they are, their interest is in Israel. That is why Israel nation is so, as tiny as it is, that's why it is so strong. Because all of them in diaspora contribute militarily, economically to the survival of their in Israel. So I'm going to harness, talking about my economic blueprint, I'm going to harness the skill, the capacity of Abians in diaspora, wherever they are. I did it when I was a vice chancellor. That was the first time I unified the alumni all over the country. That today, alumni in North America built a 40-bed postgraduate special hostel in the Atuturu. In those in Manchester built a student resource center in a teaching hospital at Abia, because my administration was able to attract them because of services. I gave them quality services. They became proud of their alma mater and said, can our school be giving us this type of services? They invited me to come and inaugurate their chapters in those places. They got interested in that. If I can do it in a small, you call it small, in comparison to the state, I'm telling you, it is my policy to bring all skills from. I went to a half year the other day. I was telling them that the capacity, the quality of human beings they have. I cited somebody like Chief Idika Carlo. I was speaking, I listened to television one day. One economist said how Idika Carlo was the one who programmed the economy of South Korea. That is on the fast lane now. These are skills we have in Abia. If they can do it for other people, why can't they do it for us? We have our sister, Dr. Ngozi Okoji-Iweala, who is flying high in the global market as the Secretary of World Trade. We need to utilize such people. You don't utilize them by letting them, you attract them, make them feel welcome in our state. And with such people, you can have easy way to most corporate bodies, global corporate bodies, and attract investment into Abia State. We can't close. We have to open the Abia State. We have to open it to the world, to the global market. You know, because for us, you are thinking globally, but you are strategizing locally, using the strength of what you have locally to sell to the world, because the world is looking for what you are bringing to them. That is the value they attach to them. It's not just being consumptive. We can't just be consuming, importing. We must export something to the world and brand it. And luckily, the incumbent governor has started it. When from day one, he said he will not wear anything except made in Abia. He was inscribing it there, proudly made in Abia, until it became a national slogan. Most people are now wearing made in Abia. The ordinary tailor in Abia now has become a designer, designing for all over the place. What we used to hear as a derogatory expression, Abia made, has now gone to the brand name of Made in Abia. This is what he has achieved. We will sustain that and move it further than that. There must be something we are giving out to the public, branded Abia, for which people will know us. We have started leather material in ASCO, in Abia. We have to improve on that and get foreigners to invest on it. And we begin to export. No matter the quantity, you have to start giving something to the world. Create world market for what we do here. And the world will get to know us for that. Then you become a major player in the global market. We have our indigenous who will help us do that. We have these products here, but you need to put it in a brand in a way that it will fit into the global market. So what we do is that we harness our material, human and material resources we have here. We make sure we package them very well. We brand them in a way. We make sure we become a major player in the global market with our brands. And with that, we earn foreign exchange and increase our exponentially our internally generated revenue. We begin to make our businessmen think higher than what they are now. It's not just Emeka and Sons Limited. It's restricted to the family. You make them believe, give a new orientation to your businessmen that you can aim higher than what if you were aiming 20 feet and 50 feet, you can end up in 30. By so doing, you have lifted the lifestyle of such an individual. So our general, the target of our economic blueprint is to uplift the life of every Abian and make our market global in what we are doing. So economy is a vast something. You take it from one point. The point is that every worker, of course, is sure of his wages. You are sure of your wages at the end of the month. Yes, the wages between, if it is weekly, you don't restrict it to the month. It can even be weekly. It can be on daily. But every workers are in different categories. They are not just thinking of civil servants. There are other grades of workers. But at the end of what you agreed, you get what is due you, and showing that you have worked. Because I tell you something, Nigerians are paying lip service to good governance. We want good governance. We want good governance. But I'm not sure they have the discipline to withstand what good governance means. Good governance demands cooperation from the led and the leader. The leader gives the leadership, and the followers should be able to follow with a commensurate discipline at work. If you are given a work, you are supposed to come to work at 8 and go at 4 o'clock, right? Somebody who wants good governance cannot come to work at 10. And by 1 o'clock, if you look for him on the table, he's not there. It's not part of good governance. So most times we blame the leader for lack of good governance. But the little place where we are, we don't institute good governance at our own level. So I will give the reorientation. My government will bring the reorientation that every Abian has a responsibility for us to institute good governance. I will give quality leadership that will make everybody believe that there is gain for everybody when we are able to institute good governance. Good governance means transparency in what you are doing. For people there is a yawning gap between the led and the leaders. And to close that gap is that you make those you are leading to trust you. Make them part of what you are doing, because in other climate I have said we are going to institute a participatory administration. Participatory that everybody up to village level has a role to play in governance. For example, if we have a project we want to institute in a place, either you are at the level of policy making, or they are at the level of implementation, or you are at the level of monitoring, or you are at the level of evaluation. So that if a contractor is working in your place, you don't just drive past it and say, well, this is government job. But that project is in your place. You don't look at it and say and report back. There will be a feedback mechanism where the policymakers will know whether the job is being executed or not. So that the people will own it as their own, though the government is funded it. That's what they now call PCPP, Public Community Private Partnership. The community must be part of what we are doing. It solves a lot of problems. One, there will be immediate supervision or evaluation of what the contractor is doing. Secondly, the citizens will feel part of governance. It will reduce the gap between the governed and the government. This is what we intend to do. When there is cooperation, any IGR you have will serve the purpose, and people will know that government is being honest with them. This is what we have. This is what we are offering, and that there is nothing that is being hidden from them. And that is part of economic development. I summarize it by what I said, participatory governance. That we don't just throw money to a contractor and there must be, there's a chain. When I said that SME is concerned, the women you are talking about are concerned. You know, there are structures already now, SME, if you know that the nation says the Abia State is the SME capital of the nation, right?
Yes.
That is why I said a foundation has been laid. We're going to put it on a faster lane, including the SMEs. The difference is now that what you notice is the gap, is what we are going to fill by participatory governance. We don't just throw money to people. We monitor it to make sure it gets to the people who are supposed to use it. And those who are supposed to use it, we monitor them to make sure that they're actually using it. That is why a councillor in a place becomes useful. The President General of a community in that place becomes part of what we are doing. He ought to know what government is doing in his town and be able to report back to government. The government at its level, we have a workstation manned electronically where we can monitor what is happening in a town in Aruchuku, where we can monitor what is happening in a town in Azumini from a workstation. That is what we are going to do, because we have people there with little electronics that will be giving us feedback in a place. We don't throw money and just allow it and begin to ask after 1 month to say what has happened. On daily basis, we monitor what is going on in a place. If there's a cooperative anywhere we have funded, we will be monitoring them on daily basis to make sure that the thing is properly utilized, to give them proper piece of advice. So everybody comes into then you have your own role to play. As at now, we are going to develop every part of Abia based on its own comparative advantage. What is it you have in your place? That's data. We are building up data on what is peculiar in each community in this state. And we use the people. For example, when we were in Bende, they have a rice belt spreading from Uzakoli to Ugweke down to that place. They are doing it at a traditional level of what they are doing their best. But if you already know what people are doing, the government comes in to help them, not just mechanizing it beyond the traditional farmers. Otherwise, you throw people out of job. You do a hybrid of a traditional way of farming and a mechanized farming, and put a rice mill for them there, and form a marketing company that acts as an off-taker, so that the farmer does not bother himself where it's being marketed. Their duty is all around the year you farm. Government helps them, gives them subvention to give them farming, so that the youth of that place will also be involved in the mechanized rice mill, bagging, and you will be found reason to build a road where lorries that will drive into the farm and take off there. So our projects will be need-driven. That serves a purpose. It's not white elephant projects we are going to set up. So the market women of 10,000 this thing that we are going to empower, somebody will monitor them to make sure, to advise them, because some of them may not have intention of misusing the money. They can have domestic problems in their place. They will be forced to at least save life first. But if there is somebody to guide them, don't touch the money. If you have other things, we have a welfare that can take care of your health or any emergency, but not taking your capital. That's what we are going. And all these are embedded in what I call participatory governance. Okay. Everybody will participate. When you withdraw from drug, when you stop taking drugs, if you have become a veteran, there's a period you have some syndrome. You need something to keep up so that you can live up. So I will regard what you're referring to as a syndrome, which is expecting to come. You have been part of a system that did not work. You have contributed to a system not working, and something is coming that you suspect that deny you that inglorious part you are paying in denying people their pensions, their basic salaries, and you are now suffering from that's withdrawal syndrome. That is what is giving rise to those tantrums. As a clinician, I recall that is what, I know it's a vlog here talking about. It's my friend, so I can't say anything against him. But because he's my patient too, I can clinically describe what he's going through. That is a syndrome of what he's anticipating is going to happen. But he's still my friend. And will still be my friend when I'll be in government house. Maybe his song will change by that time. I cannot give my score because of what he said, because it's not coming from a normal, it's a mentally disturbed mind that use the word rain. And as an academic, we find it modest to sing our song of what we have done. There is no family that doesn't have a student that passed through that place. I can tell you what happened during my 5 years as before the COVID came. Because the COVID destabilized the economy all over the world. We were not able to address the welfare of staff within that period. But before then, the university, because there are many things I need to talk about the university that make a university. But let me talk the external assessment of people I don't know who assess the university. And that is the ranking of the university. That is the presence of the university in the web worldwide. People can see the quality of teaching, the quality of lecturers you have, the portal presence of both the students and staff in the. It was 93 out of 160 Nigerian universities when I came. But the time I left, it was 27th amongst all Nigerian universities. Abia State University was ranked second to amongst all state universities in the university, second only to LASU. I think that gives you said I should be brief because I don't know which area to talk about. Is it in the academic base that since the school started, no vice chancellor could start a school of engineering or pharmaceutical sciences? Within that period, I started engineering with 5 departments. And when I talk about starting engineering, it's not that you wake up one day and say, let's start this. There is a long, tortuous process of quality that you have to do. You have to write a proposal which the Senate has to approve. Senate will approve, Council will approve. You take it to National Universities Commission. They set up a panel for you to see the curriculum and send what they call resource verification to your institution to examine whether you have the basic things to start such a program. If it is a professional body, the regulatory body must send their own team to come and examine what they call. If you pass through that, they give you a note that you can start. What of recruitment of staff? Where will you get staff? What of a salary? Because when you start this thing, there are consequences. You now increase your salary. I was able to do that for pharmaceutical sciences and for engineering. Engineering had 5 departments of different specialties of engineering. Why did I do that? These are professional courses that our children, when they go to federal universities, are not able to get admission. And this, I found out that the population of the students was dwindling in APSO. Because if you go to federal university, naturally federal universities are cheaper than state universities, right? But unless you have professional course, parents are willing to pay. So I needed to, 1, to give our people opportunity to read those professional courses. 2, to satisfy the dreams of the founding fathers of university. That it must be a conventional university. Conventional university is that any course any course that improves the economic standing of families and individuals should be run in that place. So I increase the academic base. A lot of our, traditionally, if a student does well, the best graduating student, either in your faculty or your department or overall, if you have a first class or 2-1, the school will retain you. It is part of staff development. It also helps to give incentive to the students coming behind that if you do well, you will not be in the job market. They will absorb, they give you opportunity to do that. Over the years, it was difficult for the school to do that because they were looking at the salary. Because once you employ, you increase the salary. Sometimes it becomes difficult to pay. I employed some ingenuity. There were some senior professors. They were very useful to us who are retired, but they are not tired. They supervise PhD courses. They help high-level manpower academic trainings. When you retire, you are paid 10, you are lowered by 1 grade from where you retired, right? So let's say they were earning 90% of their regular salary. And they are our friends, I know them. So I can't just come and ask them to leave. I called them and said they should help me. Instead of calling them contract workers, I called them what I term special adjunct. If you're an adjunct, they pay you 40%. So instead of that 90%, I pay them 40%. What I saved from one contract professor, I was able to bring in 3 or 4 graduate assistants. And that was huge. And I was able to return most, about 2 years back, those who had graduated with first class and 2-1, all over the state, all over the departments, graduate assistants, without increasing the monthly salary that goes for subvention. If you go there, you see young academics who and I made that fund available to them. I went to Abuja to make sure that all TED fund funds available for conferences and overseas training come to us. And I encourage them to utilize that in those who want to go to overseas and get their masters and PhD. Those who want to train locally, will give them their TED fund. I did not handle the TED fund. I know what happens in other schools. I set up a committee. Don't apply to me, apply to that committee. The committee will examine this and make their recommendations to me. My duty is to endorse and put a covering letter back to TED fund. It's not like most vice chancellors use it for their cronies. I never had cronies. I never had a group that said this is the group I will favor. Maybe that was my problem. I didn't play politics with academics. I spread all welfare across no matter where you come from, no matter who you are. So when I went there, why professors is, you're telling me to give you my scorecard.
Continue.
We're not ending here today. When it came to why a professor, is that a professor bring us one day to give the inaugural lecture. What does he do in the inaugural? He tells the world in the simplest language anybody can understand. This is what work I have done over the years, why I am a professor in this area. It's called inaugural lecture. When I came in, the school was about 36 years old. And we had only done 19 inaugural lectures, which in average is less than 1 a year, which was not good, because it was an index of measuring the academic activity in that institution. I came and cajoled my colleagues. And by ingenuity, I said, if you deliver inaugural lecture, PRO, when you are in a public function, address that person as distinguished professor, as against the nominal professors. So that became an incentive that every month people now deliver the inaugural lecture. That at the time I left, from that 19th I met it, we were up to 54th inaugural lecture. The Senate now said the third Wednesday of every month was devoted for, it became a celebration. It became a harvest of intellectualism by professors. They were struggling to give their inaugural lecture. That is academic harvest. What of research? Because that's an important activity in the university. Research. The world knows any institution by the quality of research you carry out. I emphasize research. What did I do? I went to TED Fund. The first year I got 38 research topics, in what they call institutionally based research. They funded it to the tune of 2 million per course, 38 spread across all the departments in the school. And I said every professor must be heading a research team. The second year, I got 43. Other vice chancellors were asking me, how were you able to secure these things? When I say I secured, the fund is there. But you have to do some advocacy. You have to say that you need this thing. You have to. So I didn't sit down in Utru to administer this thing. Wherever we needed fund, I went there. And by God's grace, I got the fund for the benefit of my colleagues. Before I went there, remember I went there with the mantra that our story must change. I printed a booklet, which I discussed with the university community and distributed it. I said at the end of my tenure, bring that pamphlet as a checklist of what I said I would do. Before the third year, I had completed everything I said I would do in that booklet. Our story must change. Before I went there, anybody can print 5 pages or something and sell to students at whatever price he decides, handout. Results were, after a student had taken a result, he had to stand before a clerk and say, show me. The clerk will eventually show some reluctance until something happens for a student to see his or her result. I was allergic to such things. I said it cannot happen. I said my lecturers, distinguished academics, cannot become booksellers. We set up a book committee headed by the librarian of the institution. Every department was represented in that committee, so that if you have a colleague in your department who wants a printed material is given to students, you bring the manuscript to that place. That expert from your field will go through it to make sure it is relevant to the course you're teaching. The people who are there, they can assess the cost of printing that thing and give you the cost with a markup, a reasonable markup, as a royalty for putting the material together. When it is published, it is sold by the book committee in the bookshop. Because I thought it was derogatory for a lecturer, a student to stand before you. You open your drawer and bring a book and give to, and they will carry cash and give you your cash. That is not the relationship a lecturer should have with the psyche of the student is like, this man is a trader. It affects the character of learning. Go to the bookshop, buy the book. It's paid into a special account. At the end of a week or 2 weeks, the person in charge will raise a transfer. It is transferred electronically into the account. That's what we did. So we stopped extortion by handout. There was no handout. We stopped it. When I went to the school, 3 months into my tenure, something dastardly happened in the school, which was a spillover of the build-up of cult activities. You may have heard it, that 2 students were beheaded. They used their head to form goalposts. It was worse than banditry that is happening now. That was a clarion call. I took a walk to all the villages where, we have not developed a university community in Utru. Many students live in the hostel, but majority of them prefer to go and live like kings in the private homes where they furnish and live like workers. I had opportunity to, so because of that, I beefed up security, Senate set up a security committee to immediately try any cases, reported cases of cult-related activities. Brought the army checkpoint there with a charge. If you set up something, you must monitor it to make sure it's serving the purpose. I was with the military every time to make sure they don't become like those in the checkpoints. And they were doing their work at a cost to the university. Security is expensive. We paid. And I tell you, there's no university in Nigeria that can say they've completely eliminated the cult activity, but we reduce it to a significant minimum. We put a street light, solar street light around the quadrangle of the school. Because in the night, when students are going to class, people snatch phones from them. But because of that light and patrol of the security, we were able to curb that. Students will tell you that they became freer. Cult activities. Before that time, at the end of second semester examination, when some people are graduating, they fly their colors, what they call their colors. There are flashpoints in the university, some faculties, where that day, something must happen. It starts from the classroom. When the final year students finish, they start singing their song, flying their colors, pouring, whether it is acid or water, I don't know. It's a terrifying period for both staff and students of that period. We stopped it. We say no more celebration here. If you go wherever you go to, once you finish, you leave. And we enforced it. The campus became very safe for real students. And with that, there was promotion of academic activities. Students can go to class and read. Before this time, if you go to laboratories, our laboratories were in shadow of themselves. We so renovated our, specifically one microbiology laboratory, to the extent that when they came from accreditation, one professor from Ahmadu Bello, who led the team, after when they came from exit visa, he said, "Visi, how did you get this type of laboratory? The tables, the walls, it was clinically clean, fit for laboratory practice, with modern equipment." He said this school should not be called a state university, that it is a federal state university. A professor from Ahmad Bello University. That lab is still there today. I had incentive of young men we sent outside who went to UK. They came back, some of them had the mind to replicate what they saw in that place. One of them was working was HOD of biochemistry. What we supplied to them, the equipment he needed, he mobilized his classmates because he was an alumnus of that place. They applied to me and allowed him, the people donated money, some alumni, and he bought sophisticated equipment for Department of Biochemistry. Physics. For the first time, Abia State University got what they call a zonal TED fund intervention of 3 billion naira. Every zone has, each year, university will get 3 billion naira, and Polytechnic or college will get 1 billion. Most times it is federal universities that they give it to, because TED fund is federal agency. But with my strong advocacy, that meant for our zone, Southeast zone, came to Abia State University, worth 3 billion naira. And that is why if you go to Utru now, you see exponential infrastructure development. You see a string of buildings going on, some completed, some nearing completion. If you go to Aba, where you have the campus of Aba, you see massive infrastructures going on there from that 3 billion. If you go to Faculty of Law, my and agriculture, the same thing from that 3 billion. And it includes procurement of laboratory equipment, because when they give you that, 70% is for infrastructure, 30% is for procurement of this thing. We procured fees for laboratory, equipment for laboratory that the dean of that, who is a physicist, came to the clinic and said that they didn't apply for equipment, that the department is embarrassed with a lot of sophisticated equipment, that some of them, they don't even know how to use them. So Senate advised and approved that they should look for technologies anywhere in the world to come and teach them how to use the equipment that we will pay. That is a massive story change for the. If you know before that most students were not performing experiments in the laboratory, most of them were doing alternative to practicals. One, because of lack of equipment. In fact, there were professors that came for accreditation in MedLab. I was with them. They said some of these equipment that they have not seen them before. If one professor says he can't operate any of these equipment,